Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pestana. And we're here today with special guest, Emily Francis, who's here to share with us her new book, The Taste of Joy, Mediterranean Wisdom for a Life Worth Savoring. So just imagine you have this great opportunity to move with your family to the island of Malta in the Mediterranean. It's just this beautiful island. But at the same time, it's during the 2020 pandemic and the world starts to shut down. This would be a difficult adventure for many people. And Emily's here today to share with us just her journey. Now, Emily Francis, she's been on the show before. She has a BS in exercise science and wellness with a minor in nutrition and a master's degree in human performance. Since moving to the Mediterranean, she's been a regular writer for a column in the local tourism magazine, Oh My Malta, and her column is entitled Emily in Malta, where she interviews local farmers, fishermen, and chefs about the way foods are grown, harvested, caught, and prepared on the island. She also reviews restaurants for a collaborative column titled A Chef and a Foodie on Tour, and she works as a contributing writer for Malta's Gourmet Today magazine. So welcome to the show, Emily Francis.
Thank you, Marianne. I love being on your show.
Well, it's always such an honor to spend time with you, and I'm so excited we get to talk about your new book, The Taste of Joy. So why don't you share a little bit about that with us? What is The Taste of Joy?
Man, I got to be honest, I'm so excited about this book. This was a curveball in my life. This is not what I usually write about. I changed everything in my life. So in 2020, during the worldwide pandemic and lockdown, we sold half of everything we own. We sold our homes, we sold our cars, packed up 4 animals, 2 children, my husband and me, and we boarded a plane for the island of Malta, never having visited. We got an opportunity for my husband's company to come here and make it our home, and we jumped. So we changed our entire life. And I have to say, I'm not allowed to be in practice here. So I'm no longer in bodywork practice, except for on the occasional trade or as a gift. And so finding new passion and questioning your place in your own life. Where do I want to be? What do I want to be doing? When the initial shock wears off of, I'm not going to be doing what I'm used to doing. So how do I still satisfy my curiosity, still expand my life, and make something new? And I started small. I contacted the local tourism magazine. I actually contacted every magazine, but the one people that answered me back was the tourism magazine. And we began a column called Emily in Malta. And we interview local farmers, fishermen, and chefs about the way that single ingredient foods are caught, fish caught, prepared, harvested on this island, because I now live in a GMO-free country. And I wanted to understand better what that means, because the people that are growing your food live 20 minutes away from you. So now you have access. And so my whole life changed. And this book became a curveball that just delighted my soul. There it is.
Well, and for a lot of people, they don't realize also, how challenging it was when you first moved. You and your family barely made it out of the country right before the lockdown happened. I think the lockdown took effect in pretty much every place in the world, like the next week. And
we were in it.
Yeah, and you barely made it to Malta with your family, your pets. I think the pets were barely making it over the border.
The pets made it 2 weeks after. And so the US at the time that we moved had been red zoned. So we got a piece of paper in the Netherlands at our layover saying, here's the countries that cannot board Air Malta. And the United States was the first name on that list. And we got our override papers from the Prime Minister during our layover in the Netherlands. You talk about timing. It was, and I had to turn my cat into a therapy cat and have her fly with us to the Netherlands, to Malta, instead of putting her with the pet couriers, because everything got messed up because of COVID. My passport got lost. We tried to renew our passports just to be safe. My children and I, they were sent from the same post office on the same day, yet my kids' passports went to like Louisiana, and my passport went to like Minnesota, and Minnesota never reopened because of COVID. And so my kids' passports came and mine did not. And then I had to get my local senator to get involved and get me my passport. I mean, it was torture, absolute torture. But I do believe in the spiritual sense, when you make a decision, a real commitment to a new life, the universe will conspire to test your resolve. And so it did. And so we went.
Was it scary at, the beginning when you were deciding, hey, we're going to make this big move?
It was terrifying. It was terrifying, but there were two things that I desperately wanted for my family and for my life. And that was to live in a country where the foods were not sprayed with toxic pesticides. That is a GMO-free country. And I wanted a place where I could take my kids to school and not be terrified every single day with the massive violence happening, the gun violence. And now I live in a country with really, really strict gun laws. You're not allowed to carry a gun here at all. Only the military and the police. Civilians are not. It's zero. And so my children don't know the words anymore, active shooter drills, which is what I wanted. And so when Malta came up as an option, I immediately went and checked, is it a GMO-free country? The gun laws were actually a bonus. I really didn't find out until I got here, because the other thing I love about Malta is it's a neutral country. And that's the safety that I feel when people kept telling me, like, you're safe here. And I just couldn't, you don't realize how traumatized you are until you get into a safe space and find out that this is not how the rest of the world operates. And that was really huge. And, and I'm somewhat hesitant to share that part, but it's also, as a mother, one of my most important things to share.
And I know you to be this amazing body worker. And so you talked about that. So you show up, you're in Malta, new life, people, well, they speak English there, not everyone does. There's also,
Maltese.
Yes, Maltese. And so you're coming to a country where the traditions are different. There's a language difference in some ways. So how did you even decide, okay, so how am I going to pivot this to really do your other focus, which is really the non-GMO foods?
The most I'm going to preface this that I am incredibly aware and grateful of what a privilege it is to be able to go into a place and not be allowed to work. So obviously my husband is here working, but I am not allowed. So when you put yourself out there and money is not the negotiating factor of your worth, it is an unbelievably empowering experience because you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And that you can't articulate that unless you're in that position, which never before in my life have I been in such a position where I can call people and say, look, I want to come and work for you. And them say, wow, I'd love to have you, but full disclosure, we can't afford you. And me say, well, I'm willing to do this in trade for publicity. I wanted to build my brand here. And I also wanted to learn. I never could have gotten to these farmers' homes and their farms without a magazine following me. I would never get away with calling random people and saying, hi, my name's Emily, I'm American. I'd like to come to your house today. Do you want to show me how you harvest potatoes out of your ground? But when you show up with a camera crew and an editor, and you're going to write and put them in this magazine that has 65,000 issues a month and gets way more online hits, it changes the narrative. And so it became a win-win. How do you help me help you? Help us. And so and what happened was, from the very first farmer that I ever met and going forward, I have never, ever fallen deeply more in love with a certain group of people in my life than these farmers. They are a whole different crew. And every one of them that has invited me to their home, into their life and their family, are the kindest, most generous, charismatic, loving human beings I've ever come in contact with. And never would an opportunity like that be presented if it wasn't handcrafted exactly like we created it. That's incredible. Isn't that just amazing? It's not normal. So of course I had to write a book. I already have written other books. So I can't imagine having this kind of wealth of new knowledge. I mean, like my first farmer, the potato farmer, these people grow up in this house. So these older people that are grandparents now were born in the same house. So they have lived there their whole life. And the way that Malta generally works with the generational farmers is that it starts off with a single story home. And then when their children grow up and they get married, they build a second story on top of the home. Then when those children grow up and they get married and have children, they build a third story on top of the home. These people live in the same place. So when I went to go and dig out potatoes from this farm, this man turns around, this older gentleman now, he's a grandpa, and he said, I grew my first potato on this very field. That's their life. And so these aren't people that are trying to keep up with the Joneses. These aren't people that are driving their fast, fancy cars. And in Malta, you don't want a fast, fancy car because you need to get a little tiny beater car and hope for the best because driving here is a whole different game. And so it's really fascinating that the things that I was so used to seeing as a mark of success is not that way here. And so here, the big question that I have found among farmers is, are you good people? And if that answer is yes, you're welcome at this table. And that's all they need to know. But if you aren't, forget it, you're not invited. And so that, I've had to build my relationships so these farmers will call the next farmer and say, no, she's good people. She really is. Let her come over. And so that's how it started to build. So over 2+ years now of doing this, my Rolodex, which people don't know what that even means over here. They don't know that word. But my Rolodex is coveted, honestly, because I now have some of the greatest people on this island where in a general sense, you would never get in. They're very protective of their people here. And the farmers, especially, they're a very tight-knit community. And it is tough to break in. And I feel like I have done that with enough spice as the American tour guide that they are just curious enough to show up and say yes to me. And I'll tell you another, and I'll let you talk, but a brief story. When I went to Gozo, which is the sister island of Malta, and we went to the salt pans, and the parents have been together for 53 years. And the daughter, who now teaches she has university students come, and her whole mission is preservation and to show how we keep the sea and the salt and all these things healthy and continuing. And after I did the interview, she wrote to me immediately on WhatsApp, and she said, okay, now you are family. Anything you ever need, you just tell me. And so every time I go to Gozo, my first visit immediately always is to her family, her mother, her father, and her. And she always has cookies ready for my kids. Ready. And it's just, and my mom came to visit. I took her immediately to go and meet Josephine and the Cheney family because they're just they're everything that you think about in the movies or in My Big Fat Greek Wedding or in, Under the Tuscan Sun. These people are real life. Okay, you are family now. You've been here. You come to my home anytime, and I'm so in love with this group of people. They're just the most ray of sunshine people I've ever encountered in all of life.
Well, that is just so exciting to be in that type of atmosphere and also to be able, and you talk about this in your book, to create the life that you want. And a lot of people have a tough time doing that when, let's say, something's taken away. Maybe, they've lost their job, which a lot of people are going through right now. They've lost a
Right.
job that they can no longer do, or that maybe the ability to do a job that they used to love. So it's like, how do they get to this point of recreating a new life for themselves? How do they find that?
Well, again, I have to be honest that it's a lot easier to recreate your life when you have something to fall back on, which was that our family financially was okay. That changes things because I think when you lose your job and you lose your home or potentially that and you're broke, the idea of breaking out of this mold and going just totally off the edges is nearly impossible. But the truth is that when you don't have anything to fall back on, you either go for it all the way. And because think about the people that have changed in their life, especially over COVID. Yes, many have lost their jobs, but many have landed dream jobs at the same time. Many people started working remote and said, that's exactly what changed with us, is that I wanted to leave for years. For years, I have been begging my husband, I want to move to a GMO-free country. I want to move to a safe place, and I've driven him crazy. But when COVID hit and everybody went online, my narrative was, what are we doing here? Why are we here? Let's move to Costa Rica. Let's move to Hawaii. Like, I was ready. Like, I don't care if I have a little trailer. I don't care if I'm in a shack. Let's downsize. Let's get out and go be happy. But that's not most people. And it worked out, thank God, that his boss made it possible for us to move and them to move. We moved here with 30 people coming to Malta to make it our hub and our home. So we had a support. But my family the whole company lives in this one area of town that I call Manhattan of Malta. We live in Malibu of Malta. So we don't live near the city, that part of the city. So we did have to create a new life because our life revolved around children and family. But again, back to your question, in this 2020 pandemic, I think a lot of people, whether they had financial resources to fall back on or not, I think I'm fair to say that everybody started to question the place they hold in their own life, because so many people were getting sick and so many people were not surviving this. So if you have this much time left, or it's now constantly hanging over you as a reminder, I think a lot of people started soul searching and saying, what, is this really all there is? Is this the life I'm going to leave? Just this? And I'm never going to put myself into something new or try something bold and daring. And for a lot of people, they love where they are. I just wasn't one of them. And so I wanted out, and I started really getting a little pushy about it.
Well, we're glad you did, because my goodness, and I'm sure you and your family are glad you did, because here you are in this just environment where I don't think anyone could have really imagined the growth that just is happening for you and your family, and just not just personally, but it seems also very spiritually as well.
Malta, it's funny. Malta is 98% Catholic. And I actually am by religious trade Catholic, plus a lot of other things. But this is what me and a cab driver were driving the other day. And he said, wow, on paper, Malta is so Catholic. But in real life, they're not at all. It's not what you think. So it's not what the Americanized religion view is. So what we realize is that even Catholics in America are more evangelical. And here, nobody's asking if you went to mass. Nobody's pushing you. Nobody's trying to convert you. Nobody's doing any of that stuff. And everybody, they have their own prayer and their own faith, but it's extremely personal. And so the conversations are wildly different. It's not, are you, did you? It's none of the stuff. It's just, oh, we say, thanks God. Oh, we all pray for rain for each other. We pray for you. But it's not a pushy thing. And what it has helped me do personally is expand my faith, because nobody's pushing me. And here, there's 7,000 years of history here. There are cities here that predate Christ. And so the history in Malta is magnificent. And the churches here are like the Sistine Chapel. The churches here are exquisite. So if there are church doors open, I don't care where I am, my kids know it, I'm going in. I am going into every church, every spiritual center. There's a cave here in Malta that is, it's called the Lady of the Grotto. And it's where Mary first appeared to a hunter, I believe in BC. After Christ, but still very early. It's in my book, and the proper years are done. But they built her in the bottom of the cave in memory of where she appeared. And the statue is one of the 3 that we've heard of in the world that cries tears of human blood. And they had it tested by forensics, and it was human blood. And you can't get to the statue. It's glassed off and latticed off, and it's not some pulp behind it or any of these things. It's happened in Italy. It's happened in Australia. So it's considered a miracle site. And I have to tell you that I go there a lot. I consider her kind of my friend, my dear Lady of the Grotto. And it seems like almost every time I visit, something magnificent happens very shortly after. And I went the first time when I started researching for my book. And I said, I've got to find her. And I had lunch with my 2 best friends. And I said, ladies, have you gone there? Have you gone to Maliha and visited the lady? And they said, no, we're here. We're born and raised in Malta. You've seen more of this country than we ever have. And they said, No. So I drove there by myself. I dropped the kids off at school. I dropped my husband off at work. We now have one car. I'm the only driver in this house. Our life is so completely different than it was in America. I dropped everybody off and I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to go see the lady. I'm just going to go find her. I plugged it in and I went there alone. And I realized that's almost a little scary because you're at the bottom of a cave in the dark and all these red lights are on the floor around her. Everybody lights these candles at her feet. And it's a little bit auspicious and creepy at the same time because you're at the bottom of a cave and you start to realize as a woman, if you scream, nobody's like, okay, nobody knows that I'm here. Like, I started to have those thoughts of like, I didn't tell my husband, I didn't tell anyone. I just up and decided I was going to go down in the bottom of this cave and not realize, that this might be maybe not the smartest. I have to tell you, it was magnificent and people are in and out more than you can imagine. Tourists, people. So it wasn't as scary, but I had that immediate thought. But I had a little health issue going on and I prayed about it. And it was resolved by the next day. And it had been months and doctor visits and all sorts of things. And, I had two different people that I told this story to. One laughed it off and said, oh my gosh, you're not going to buy into that, are you? And I thought, well, honey, it's like you haven't ever met me. And then the other person who's very spiritual, who's like, oh, nobody could ever talk me out of that. I know it's the lady, And to me, it was like, look, you guys weren't there. I know it was her. I was blessed. This prayer was answered. And this is why people come to a place like Malta, because there's a church in Gozo that's considered one of the miracle sites as well. And people travel from all over the world to ask for the intercession of the Lady of Tapinu. And it's auspicious beyond. And there's these two giant rooms, walls that accompany the entire church. And all the walls are filled with letters, old braces of their back, canes, casts, things where people could walk again after they left and they brought their cane, baby bonnets galore, letters everywhere of all these miracles that have happened to these people. So the tour buses come to this. I've switched locations now, but there's a lot of places like that on the island. And the thing that I love, no matter what religion, whatever faith, this place is built on magic. It's built on real healing, real magic, real history, and people aren't waving it off as a general. The person that waved it off was American. The people here, they don't wave that stuff off. They believe in it. And I like being in a place where that's natural and normal.
I don't blame you. I would too. Being able to just feel like, miracles happen and one happened with me and I believe that it did.
Yes. And to me, I have that in my book. Miracles happen every day. And there is ways to heal all over the world. What, I'm going to come here and decide that's not true? That's just doesn't make any sense. But I do love that I have certain places on the island that I've discovered that I go to for contemplation, prayer, gratitude, and then I call my people that are around there. When I go to the fishing village, I'll go down and have my own time. And then I always call my dear friend who made my she's introduced me to everybody down there in the fishing village. And those people are born and raised there. They don't leave. She literally never leaves the outskirts of the fishing village. For my big book release party, I might have to go kidnap her and bring her. She has offered baby that she will come with her nephew because she doesn't leave the town ever.
What a remarkable place Malta is. In your book, you talk about the spices of happy, joy, and bliss. What does that mean?
Well, my last book, Healing Ourselves Whole, I talked about the somatic emotions of the body. And I believe there are 4 really positive things that our bodies store in their muscle memory. One is happy, the next is joy, the next is connected, and then empowered. So I did a lot of research on happy and joy and what those mean in relation to our human experience. And what I learned is that happy, the real experience of happy, is an externally triggered thing. So it's your environment, it's things that are around you. Joy is deeply felt within you, and it's a physiology within the body. So that those two became the magnitude of spices of what I feel here in life. But bliss, from all my years of yoga study and spiritual study, bliss usually translated to heaven on earth or heaven in another sense. Like in yoga, if a swami passes away, they say that they entered mahasamadhi, which means perpetual bliss. So bliss usually is parallel to something beyond the physical experience. And so for me, happy, joy, and bliss as the three spices of my life here in Malta is because my body, my mind, and my spirit are aligned in a way that I have dreamed about for a great many years and never really understood the true gravity of what that could mean in life. To feel that really blissfully happy is beyond what I believe is a human experience.
In your book, you have all these great recipes. And I got to tell you, Salvatore Romano, his recipe for Sicilian simple salad, blood orange salad with fennel, that is amazing. That is
And it looks
absolutely amazing.
fabulous.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
so Salvatore Romano owns Tasting Sicily. He's also the founding member of the Mediterranean Olive Oil Academy. And his particular blend of olive oil has won worldwide awards, first place for the best olive oil in the world. And I Zoom call with him fairly often because him and Dermot, who own the Mediterranean Olive Oil Academy, have become my buddies. And one day while we were having a Zoom call, Salvatore was eating that salad. Nice, beautiful bowl, blood oranges, very thinly sliced green onions, scallions, and the onions super thin sliced. And he held it up to me and he said, I drizzle my dolce di Romano, olive oil over this. And he said, it's the simple salad. You know it. I said, no, I don't know it. And he was like, well, it's just this. And I said, okay, can I put it in the book? And then my friend who's Italian, she's like, that's nothing new. I was like, okay, that's the point though. That's nothing new for you. For us, it is brand new. We don't know simple. We don't know simple. We don't know simple things to throw in a bowl. At least I don't, speaking for myself as an American. I don't know simple things to throw in a bowl and go, you know what? I would love to do the onions and this blood orange. I mean, that only comes in season, one part of it. Right now, my orange trees are unbelievably orange. It is mimosa season at my house. I have 2 giant orange trees in front of my front door, and there are oranges galore. And even today, when I picked up my child off the bus, I brought him tangerines off my other tree just to say thank you. But so here in the Mediterranean, where blood oranges and different oranges grow magnificently, you pull them off your tree, you throw them in a bowl, slice up a few scallions, put it in, drizzle with some olive oil, and you're good to go.
What I love about your book, not only do you have a book club pamphlet that people can use, a brochure that they can download and be able to use a book club kit, but also there's this component that I think gets people really gathering more so together where they can also incorporate cooking together. And I found that so unique. There's not a whole lot of people doing that.
There's definitely not a whole lot of people doing that because not a lot of people have access, and that was, I want to put this out there that my book is not a cookbook, but there's a recipe in every chapter and they're all really simple recipes. And it's also the big thing, the buzzword is the Mediterranean diet. And that's not my thing because the Mediterranean diet, what I've really learned is it's a culture. It isn't a diet. It's just that Americans take it and adapt it to what we know, which means restriction, which means here's how you lose weight. Here's how you get healthy. And here in Malta, they don't do that stuff. They don't limit the olive oil. And I'll tell you, there's not much butter here. I mean, there is butter, but you don't use it so much. You use olive oil for everything. When you sit at a restaurant, there's little packets of olive oil. That's what they give you for your salad. And they give you a salad undressed. And that's why in the book, you'll find the vinaigrette dressing because there aren't jarred salad dressings here. Like in the grocery store at home, you have an entire wall of cold salad dressings. That doesn't exist here. And there is no cut and pour salad and dressing in a bag here. So if you want your salad or vegetables to have any sort of dressing, you're going to have to learn how to make it. And that's why I took a course on how to spice up your salads at the Mediterranean Culinary Academy and learned how to make a simple vinaigrette because I'm not one of those people that just Now I am. Now I walk outside, grab my orange, zest it, throw it in a bowl, put in some Dijon, do my olive oil, do a little, apple cider vinegar, mix it up, with my little whisk. But back before I lived here, I would have just grabbed my dressing of choice was blue cheese. I would have gotten my little, glass jar of blue cheese and thought I was like high rolling in my glass jar of blue cheese dressing. So I've had to learn it. So I put these recipes in because I want to give people an opportunity to see what Mediterranean food really is about, but it's not restrictive. It's fun, delicious.
Well, I am in love with the recipes that you have. I've tried out several, and while not all the ingredients I'm able to get are organic, I'm still making them. They're great recipes, and I highly suggest that for other people as well. And just makes me want to travel to Malta to experience it firsthand. So, we've really been exploring what it was getting outside of your comfort zone. What were some of the challenges or maybe some of the things that you learned while doing that?
I feel like that's a loaded question because the truth is, I'm giving the glamorous side of living here in this book, but it was so dirty to start off with. We had to be in a mandatory quarantine for 14 days, couldn't leave our house. The government came and checked on us at random times to make sure we were following the rules and not leaving the house. We had seen nothing. And then we had lived here at most 3 weeks. And my husband's brother passed away in the middle of the night suddenly. And my husband had to leave for a month. And that was the moment of terror for me, heartache too, but terror of, oh my gosh, I have 2 children and I am alone in a foreign country. And I have no idea what to do. I didn't know how to drive over here. You're driving on the other side of the road and the road rules are totally different and terrifying. So I wasn't driving. We had to take a cab everywhere we went. My children had just started school. And because of COVID, we were not allowed to tour the school. We weren't allowed to meet the teachers. They weren't allowed to find their classrooms. It was horrifying. I didn't even know where the school was because I didn't know where anything was because we've been living in a lockdown. I knew where, and it's not like all of a sudden directions or areas. Malta used to be owned by the Turks, and Maltese is 70% Arabic. So even the street signs don't make any sense. And so you're really like, you have no clue where you are. Like there's not even like a compass to go, okay, that's north. Like I felt so discombobulated for weeks to months. And I literally became the school bus driver's chaperone so I could go to school with my kids every day and get them to school. And then I had to wait for a second van to come pick me up, which was almost an hour wait every day with these little older women that do this as their retirement job. And I'm doing this every day. And it did give me a sense of direction. And I at least got to meet some of the teachers and meet some of the staff because you cannot just send children in a foreign country and like, okay, good luck, kids. Find your teacher, find this. Even my daughter, the first day of school, came home crying because she thought she was in the wrong classroom all day. Why? Because I gave her Mrs. and then the last name. And here they go by Miss and the first name. So my child thought she was in the wrong class the whole day because she didn't know who this person was because that's not what I prepared her for. And I didn't know. I didn't know that all the staff is whatever their first name is and Miss or Mr. And so that was heartbreaking, but it was really, really messy and terrifying. And this was long before I had gotten, this work with the magazine and started meeting these amazing people. This is just a mother and children, husbands out of the country. Yes, people have been moving here, but they moved after us. So I didn't have people to lean on. I had the boss and his wife, but the boss was working like a maniac. And like I said, they didn't live in our same town and she didn't know where she was going either. So you really alone. I hadn't made any friends yet. It was terrifying. So when I say you have to get your hands dirty, what has become of my life? I did that. I made that. Nobody introduced me to that magazine. Nobody gave me that opportunity. I did it. I built these relationships myself. And meeting these farmers, nobody gave me a contact list and said, hey, go to this farmer and do this interview. My editor's 27 years old. She doesn't know the farmers on this island. She, barely got out of university. they didn't have I have more contacts than they do right now because I've been working so hard. So what has become my life here was built by hand. And that's what I mean. Get your hands dirty because I didn't have a choice, really. And then I built on it. But to have two children relying on you and all you're doing is thinking, do I have a panic attack or do I get through this? Like, because it was like by the time my husband came home, I had managed to get driving lessons because I wasn't even allowed to take driving lessons because I didn't have my residence card yet. So my husband got his in 2 weeks. I got mine in 8 months. So nobody would give me lessons. And I'm literally in the backseat of a cab. And I said, oh, I have a brand new car in my garage. It's too bad I'm afraid to drive it because the company got us a car that I'm not driving. So I'm taking a cab everywhere. And he said, why aren't you driving? And I said, because it's terrifying to drive over here and nobody will give me driving lessons. And so cash is king over here. So he picked up the phone, called his buddy, will you teach this girl driving? And I hear the guy on the phone go, will she pay cash? And I'm like, yes, tell him yes. And so we start taking driving lessons. So by the time my husband came back to Malta, I had made new friends, started driving, picking my children up in the afternoon. So I went on the van in the morning and then picking them up myself in the afternoon, and then knew where to go. We had to go to tutoring. Not only did they have to go to school, they had to skip a grade. Malta starts at a different age than the United States. And my oldest daughter had to skip 2 grades. So we had to go to tutoring after school to try to catch up. And here everybody speaks at least one other language. So my children had to get in, figure out which language they're going to learn and start taking it every day. So they had to do tutoring. And so I had to figure out where I'm taking them. So when my driving teacher would pick me up every Monday, I would say, okay, here's the places on my list that I have to know how to get to. Don't just take me randomly driving. Take me to this person's house, this store, and this place. And I don't care about the rest of the island. I only need these 3 locations for right now. And that's what we did week after week after week. I paid my cash. He, looked it up on the thing and would find the tutor's house. And driving here, the roads were made for horse and carriage. So the amount of times that you hold your breath, hoping that somehow the car will be skinnier and get through is hilarious because you have cars parked on each side of the road. And then you're supposed to have 2 more cars get through. And the road size is about 1 of Atlanta's streets. Like, it is shocking. And I warn everybody before they come, like, please don't freak out in the car. I've been taking lessons for a very long time. It is going to scare the pants off you, but try your best not to make it worse because it is a big deal. But that's what I mean. Like, get your hands dirty, get out of your comfort zone because I had clay to mold. And I molded it in a way that was better than I could have possibly anticipated because at the beginning, I really didn't know where that was going to go. But now I have spectacular friends and a lot of them are from the school and a lot of them are from other countries. So it's a lot of moms going, oh gosh, you're here too. Let's be friends. We need each other. So my dearest friends are Brazilian, Greek, and French. That's my ladies group from the school. And then my 2 best friends outside of that are both local Maltese. And I'm just lucky. I'm really lucky with who I've been able to meet, what this situation has offered to me. And I also didn't sit back and hope for the best.
A lot of people would have said, wow, okay, well, I can't handle that. It's too much. I'll have to wait. I have my kid, they'll figure it out. They're at the school. They can ask somebody, so being able to take the steps that you did and be so proactive is really a lot that is built to the foundation of where you're at right now.
It is. I honestly feel like I'm almost a completely different version of myself than I have been ever at any point in my life. And a lot of it's from being strong and growing up. I mean, I feel like in my 40s, we moved here, I was 45. I'm 48 now. I feel like I did more growing in these years than almost my whole life in one stint because I don't have my mom to call and say, can you help? Can you watch the kids? Can you do this? I don't have my sister to call and say the same, and so I had to start relying on friends that became my family. And I used to watch other people do that, but I never had to because I've always been near my family. And now I have friends that I can call and say, look, I'm really like, I got salmonella. I got salmonella poisoning, and my husband was out of the country, and he was coming back that day. And I couldn't decide, should I go to the hospital? I didn't know what it was at the time. Should I go to the hospital? Should I try to get through this? And I didn't want to like freak him out before he's on the second plane. And so I'm like, hey, can't wait to see you. Love you. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm dying. I can't move. I can't roll over. So I call my dear friend here and I'm like, listen, you got to pick the kids up. You got to pick my kids up from school. I cannot get in the car and get there. And thank God we had put each other on the list to pick each other's kids up if need be. And then when my husband landed in the Malta airport, I was like, okay, go to Juliana's and get the girls. Because I didn't want to tell you. And then I wound up in bed for 7 whole days in the most ungodly sickness of my life. And like I said, my husband still hasn't taken those driving lessons, so he doesn't drive here. Now, let me open that up though, because that's the coolest part of this all, in my opinion. Because when we lived in Atlanta, his commute ended up being about an hour and a half each way because of traffic. So he never saw the kids in the morning. And then he would get home just in time for dinner, frazzled, dinner, put the kids to bed. That's it. That's your life. Here, I live on an island that literally north to south is 40 minutes long. So anywhere you go, because we're sort of north but middle, takes about 20 minutes. So every morning now in our life, my husband and I wake up with our children. We have family breakfast all together at the table. All of them get in the car. We drop our kids off at school first. Then I drop my husband off at the office. Then I have my few hours that are just for me to go and interview or write articles or do whatever I'm doing. And then I pick up the kids. And then later we all jump back in the car and pick up daddy, come back for dinner. But we already have this huge car talk. We caught up by the time we get home, have dinner. We have so much more time for family. And that can't happen unless either you live right by your work, you work out of your house, or you move to a tiny island, and it is possible. And because my husband doesn't drive, we have one car. We share a car. Like, we downsized a lot of parts. Our house is beautiful, but the outside stuff is different. It's just amazing, but it's different. But the family time, I wouldn't trade that for the world. Now that I know what that's really like, and have the help in the morning, so you're not running around like a crazy person because you have 2 hands on deck every day to help make sure, are you wearing uniform today or PE kit today, or every day is different. And breakfast, so my job in the morning, I get up and I make breakfast and I pack their lunches, and then he and I alternate or cook together for dinner. We're happier and slower and have more time together. And isn't that the thing that everybody at the end of their life wishes they would have had more of, this time?
Well, and also that ability to slow down, to be able to just, kind of take some of that stress off and slow down and just be present. You often hear of people talking about that, but you don't really see a whole lot of people accomplishing that. So it's nice to be able to see that.
It's interesting. I'm writing a lot of articles right now, of course, for the book to go and promote. And one of the biggest buzzwords that I keep finding in articles is self-care. Self-care. Explain self-care from the Mediterranean. I got to be honest with you. Self-care doesn't look anything like American self-care. Nothing. Because here, they don't overcommit themselves. They just don't do that. So they kind of look at things and go, oh, no. That would make me very stressed. I'm not going to do that today. Here's the things I can do today. Here's the things I can commit to. The rest, they say this a lot, it will sort itself out. Where they say, as you wish. But they don't do that. So they don't have to pull themselves up from the ledge and learn how to give themselves vision quest showers to calm down, or these little snippets of how to add these parts of your day so that you can feel somewhat sane. People here, they know how to live well. It's a lifestyle, and they know how to work hard, but they play. Boy, do they play. They play hard. They play when it's time to, they work when they need to, and they don't guilt themselves when they're on the playtime. So even like tomorrow's a public holiday. Last Thursday was a public holiday. My mom laughs. She's like, you and those holidays. Yes, we have less school days a year than the United States. We have a lot of celebrations here in Malta. Those feast days are serious. And so they get a lot of time off, and they get a lot more vacation time. It's not 2 weeks a year, it's 6. People travel here as much as they possibly can. So even today with the magazine, we went to go and to the craft village to talk about Christmas treats and all the things that are to come. And it became too windy and we had to cancel it. But tomorrow's a public holiday. So the cameraman's like, oh, no, we're not to work on public holidays. It just doesn't. So, like Emily in Paris, where they talk about this on Netflix and they say, cannot call on the weekend. American people, we call no matter what. If we're working and we're in that work mindset, we pick up the phone. I have this idea. Let's work on this project. In Malta and in the majority of Europe, that's a no. That's a hard no. Saturday, Sunday, it's a zero work. Holidays, zero work. Daytime, don't overdo it. So they, and for them, okay, let's go for coffee. You're there for hours. You're not there for 20 minutes going, all right, I'm on the clock. I got to get out of here. They don't do that stuff. So it's self-care looks entirely different.
Do you think that can be, in many ways, parts of this can be translatable to life in the U.S.?
Yes. I mean, it's interesting. Of all the friends I've made here, none are American. There are Americans here, but I don't know them. And it's interesting because my take on things are so different. I am the one that's probably the most different than all my European friends because they share a similar culture and I don't. And so there's a lot of it's just fascinating. It's really fascinating. But yeah, I translate everything because, I find myself in my head going, wow, last year, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have handled it that way. Or I would have, jumped faster. I was much more, and I still have it in me, but I was much more reactionary when I lived in the States than I am here.
Well, Emily, my goodness, we're going to be doing, I just have another talk with you in another month. This is just so exciting. There's so much great things in your book, The Taste of Joy. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community? What's that website?
That website is emilyafrancisbooks.com.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you, Marianne. You're so wonderful.
Well, thank you, Emily. As always, it is such a pleasure to spend time with you and to talk about your new books, and especially your experiences in Malta. I can't get enough of that. And I'm excited to share that The Taste of Joy, Mediterranean Wisdom for a Life Worth Savoring is a Moments with Marianne book club pick for January 2023. I found Emily's book to be such a great inspiration to not only embracing the life we currently have, but also be open to the life that could show up for us. You never know what Mediterranean adventure is just right around the corner for you. I encourage you to be part of Emily's community. Visit her website at emilyafrancisbooks.com to learn more not just about this book, but all of her other books. The Taste of Joy focuses on so much more than what we covered today. It talks about Mediterranean diet, mindfulness, long and healthy living, pursuing your happiness, discovering your purpose for living, and of course, all the great healthy recipes that are included. On Emily's website, you can find the Book Club Kit, which has not only great starting places for your next book club pick, but also recipes that you want to get together and make with your friends. Make sure to catch up on Emily's column in Oh My Malta titled Emily in Malta, and also her writings, My Malta Life. You've got to check that out. It's an amazing read. So The Taste of Joy is available to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And again, remember to support our indie bookstores. So if you don't see the book on the shelf, just ask for them to order it. Again, if you'd like to connect with Emily, you can at her website, emilyafrancisbooks.com, where you can learn all about her work and be part of her community. To learn about The Taste of Joy and other great books, make sure to visit the Moments with Marianne book club, located at mariannepestana.com. There we have books in every genre, and you'll want to make sure to check it out for your next great read. So, do you have a small business or book that you think should be on the radio, and the social media algorithms have changed so much that you just can't connect with your target market? Well, you're not alone. That's why so many people are choosing to advertise on radio. KMET is part of the 25th largest U.S. radio market in Southern California. The Moments with Marianne radio show is also available everywhere online after it airs on KMET. With over 800 episodes available, downloaded in over 78 countries, we're the #1 choice for advertising books and small businesses. So visit my website at mariannepestana.com for more information on how you can advertise on KMET AM/FM. Well, we're going to pause here for a quick moment, and we'll be right back after these messages. I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.